Time I'll call to order the November 18, 2024 work session of the Clearwater City Council. This time we'll move to item 2.1 on the agenda. This time I call forward Leanne Korst from CBRE. She's the Senior Vice President, and I also see our County Administrator, Barry Burton, here. I'd like to call him forward as well.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members, City Manager. Today's really exciting. It's our first discussion really about our concept of our relocation of our county campus. But, you know, when we were talking about that, and I'll give you just a little bit of background on it, we first looked at, you know, what do we need to do to improve our facilities? If you come over and you see the big, iron sign out there, it says, 1961. So our buildings, and of course we have 14 here in downtown Clearwater, and so they've been through various ages and life cycles, and we have people that are put over in this building not because that's where they belong, but because that's where space was available, and they really belong at Public Works. And so we really looked at the way we do business today versus the way we did business in 1961. Very, very different. And we looked at the amount of improvement that would be needed to bring our buildings up to a standard. And that's really talking with the commission. We said it really makes sense to be more centrally located. But at that same time, we really had a concept of looking at how to work with Clearwater on you envisioning your vision for downtown. Here, you probably don't have the highest and best use for our facilities. I look out my window and I have the most gorgeous view of Clearwater Beach, and I think this should be $1 million condo, right? And it's my office, and so it really, and that's when we began to have discussions with council members that are here, and certainly your predecessors, about looking at doing something different. So, as part of this process, we really assembled a team, because this is a big project, and it's far bigger than just being a relocation of the county campus. It's really about revitalization and economic development, for Clearwater to realize, their vision and what you're looking for. So we're here as much as kicking off some concepts, but this is the first meeting of many, because we want to work with you on how do we realize the full potential of the property that we own. Work with you on creating that tax base, creating that vitality that we know it can be realized, right here in Clearwater. So again, this is the first of many. We did assemble a team, though. I want to just introduce a couple of people, and they're going to kind of go through the slides, and then we can open up for any and all discussions you really want to have. And so you mentioned Leanne Korst. So we hired CBRE to be our owner's rep. CBRE is a top 125 firm, Fortune 100 firm, but they also have a local presence. They have a local presence here in Tampa. And in fact, and I don't think she's going to be speaking, but Kelly, one of our consultants, is a Pinellas County resident, grew up here in Clearwater. And so they have a team here that understands our area, but they bring a national presence of not only people that work in the public sector or the private sector in the commercial space, but they also have financial analysis groups, and I don't know how many employees they have, but several 100,000. I mean, it's a large firm, and they bring the different disciplines to where we can assemble a team to achieve what we're trying to achieve. And so I'll introduce, I mentioned Leanne. We also have Robert Shaw. You're going to hear from him in a minute. And Kelly's back there in the back. Then I also want to introduce somebody else, and that's Blaine Williams. Blaine's our new Assistant County Administrator. So this is going to be one of his projects that he's going to work with our team on. And he has not only has a lot of experience, he started out his career as a downtown development manager. Then he went and built construction projects for a while, and he just most recently was a county manager of a county up in Georgia. So we welcome him to the team, but I think we've assembled a good team to be able to talk about all the challenges and things we have to work together to do something we can all be proud of. So again, look forward to working with you. I'll let Kelly get to her slides, but anything you want to talk about, we're certainly here to do. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have the presentation deck loaded? Wonderful, thank you. Leanne Korst, I'm responsible for CBRE's Southeast Region government practice, so my clients are only city, county, and state governments. It's a pleasure to be here with you today and appreciate your time and opportunity. So as the county administrator shared, we have been undertaking quite a long planning process over the last couple of years. And the county's emphasis has been on high-quality services, citizen services, as well as effective county administration. So those were the cornerstones. There we go. Those were the cornerstones as we approached the new campus, as well as asking the question, how does vacating the buildings in downtown Clearwater create an opportunity for you all? So this is the team of professionals that Mr. Burton mentioned just a little while ago. And, our goal for you is and the county is to expand the tax base through the redevelopment potential. So this is where we have been. As part of our analysis, after we performed the facility condition assessments on the properties here, we also looked at the development potential and hired a partner to look at the buildable density. And in doing so, then we also undertook a site selection process. So you can see the green X there in the middle of that page is the county's weighted population center. And we sought to acquire a site with Kelly's help, and that site is the ICOP Boulevard site. And you can see it is the brown X, so you can see we were able to acquire a site really in the central part of the county. In addition to that, we worked with the City of Largo to change the land use to allow for government use. And we've been studying some site orientation options that you can see here. And this is just one of several that will go back to the county commission for their feedback in a workshop session. So getting to what you probably care about a little bit more is downtown Clearwater redevelopment. And you can see on this page all the sites that the county owns and occupies in Clearwater. And it totals about 13 acres. And the buildable density that we looked at with an architect partner, it has the potential to be up to just over 3 million feet of buildable density. So the study also included looking at these various hubs, if you will. With the county properties are really, the hole in the donut with Cleveland Street and other areas that have been developed and have really your amenity base. So this slide really just shows how we're looking at maybe 3 potential phases for the redevelopment and using Court Street as a gateway to do that. This slide breaks it down just a little bit more, and it looks at the neighborhoods and activity centers, and it really provides context to some of the existing locations in and around the area, and context to those adjacent uses. And with that, I'm going to stop and bring Robert up to talk about the timeline, because the timeline for the new construction will really help inform the redevelopment. And I'll talk about next steps in the RFP process in just a moment.
Hey, good afternoon. So we have a real simple schedule here that starts out with the actual purchase of the property back in 2003, late 2003. We're in a visioning and process review schedule right now, which we're about to complete here at the end of the quarter. And then we're going to move into sourcing RFP for design services. That'll then inform the construction, and we're hoping to have an occupancy sometime in first or second quarter of 2028. So obviously that's a highline schedule at the moment. We still need to hire the appropriate consultants for design and for construction, but we are anticipating that is a realistic schedule.
Thanks, Robert. So with the county vacating high level again in 2028, early 2028 is the plan right now, that brings us then to the vacant, as they vacate the property here, we can create a timeline that aligns with that delivery of the new headquarters campus. And so the next steps will be for us to create an RFP and market very broadly the properties in downtown Clearwater and seek a developer or developers through a very competitive process. And as Mr. Burton shared earlier, Our company has a national and even international reach. We want to make sure that any owner, investor, or broker that is interested in the property knows about the redevelopment opportunities. So we're not putting a sign in the ground and selling it fee simple. We want to make sure that RFP has the must-haves and the nice-to-haves that both the county and city want in order to make an informed decision, and really ask for proposals that ensure that we know who the developer is and we know about their financial and experiential capacity to perform in order to make a good selection for a redevelopment partner. With that, I'll stop and, sure.
So we also want to work with you in terms of making sure we realize that we achieve what we intend on achieving, right? There's ways of doing that. We've had conversations with your city attorney and things like that. So we want to work with you. For us, I just also wanted to do, I mean, the reason we've been spending so much time, it wasn't as fruitful as I wanted, but I wanted an efficiency study. You're going from 14 buildings down to 3. We shouldn't be able to consolidate. We're going from 530,000 square feet down to about 317. So you can see just through design and efficiency, trying to think about government of the future and the way we operate, you know, we're significantly, you know, shrinking our footprint and stuff. We also recognize that we're going to need to work with you on what do we do with the, do you want a historic courthouse? It's on the corner there. We're going to have to figure out what we do with things like that. So there's a lot of different component pieces that we're going to have to get into as we go along. But anyway, with that, I'll answer any questions.
First, before I take questions, thank you for coming here to share the information with us. I'd say it's the talk of the town. Once you announced, the commission announced an intention to relocate, certainly the community wants to know, you know, what our plans are for that piece of property. No pressure at all, but it may be a once in a lifetime or once in a city history chance to do something really dynamic and do something that will change our entire city for years to come. So I can tell you personally just how much I appreciate the county's willingness to work with us, because it's absolutely critical. I've told folks, you know, we've already had Imagine Clearwater. This is maybe the Reimagine Clearwater project, but it's certainly going to change our community for years and years to come if we get the right dynamic plan in to do it. And I have no doubt with, as you're talking about your office, how it overlooks the Gulf of Mexico, it's great space. And if we can bring in something that really changes our community, it's going to be a significant accomplishment for all of our citizens. So with that, I'll open up the questions, that I do have one or two myself.
I just wanted to say thank you. Wonderful presentation. I appreciate you coming here and introducing your staff, the people that will be working on it with our staff. As the mayor just said, I do believe it's a wonderful opportunity. As you alluded to as well, Barry, just the economic or impact that we can have with neighborhoods, businesses, commercial, that can come into downtown Clearwater and then help both, you know, the city of Clearwater and the county as well. So very excited about what the future holds here. I think you got a good team, and I look forward to seeing what we can accomplish together. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Teixeira.
I would like to echo everything that has been said. I believe it is once in a lifetime opportunity, especially when you think of the city as being built out. To have this amount of property being available, to me is a gift. And the timing is perfect because it will add to all our efforts. You know, our recent efforts include Coachman Park, Baycare Sound, the new 158-key hotel, parking structure, 400 new apartments, intermobile center, new city hall. And so this is what, you know, a concerted effort, and together I think this is what's going to take to accomplish it. So I'm very excited. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate the fact that we are not only at the table, but we're being heard, because this is our city. And so I really appreciate the fact that you are working with us in creating a better Clearwater.
Thank you.
Councilmember Menino.
Thank you for being here as well, and for your team. I also recognize it not just as a gift to Clearwater, but a blessing. And this is an opportunity, 16 buildings over 13 acres, to change the face of downtown Clearwater for generations to come, and we recognize that. At the same time, I want to thank you for making it a truly collaborative process. That's great to hear in your recognition of truly wanting what is best for the city of Clearwater. I know for a lot of us, when we first heard we were losing you as the county seat, it was a bit bitter. Never wanted to see that happen or to see you go. But I think as we evolve through this process, we see the true blessings behind it for both sides. We wish you the best in the new building and truly look forward to what our team and your team together can change Clearwater to be.
Thank you. And, you know, and Jennifer and I have talked about that, and I think, you know, we work really closely together, and I appreciate her so much, because it has been a collaborative process, and it'll continue to be. But we also, and we learned from this team about just the process of how to engage developers and listening to them. You know, we're thinking about this site, they may be thinking about this site, right? They may have other ideas, and so I think the way in which we approach this to tap that potential is going to be important, and so we can collaborate through that process also, and we'll have you guys at the table so we can do this together. So I 100% agree. I think it's a generational project, and I think it's a real opportunity.
Vice Mayor, anything?
Oh, yeah. Well, Barry, we've been talking about this for a while. I know John Jennings, back when he was here, I think was talking about the opportunities then. And the hardest thing for developers is assembly, you know, trying to find and putting everything together. And this is a great opportunity for us because you've got so much acreage right down in our downtown. So I'm excited that you've been talking to our city manager, and you guys are, you understand our situation, and when you move, it'll be sad to see you go, but I understand why things have changed from 1961, and just like our city hall, you know. I'm glad that we've got a new one being built, which is nice. And one of the things that kind of got me thinking about this was a few years ago when we moved PSTA over to the new site on Myrtle and Court. We have a great development opportunity with half the site, but it's nice that the county utilities with the other half, if we could put that together. That's an assembly there that'd be a great development opportunity right in the middle of our downtown for a developer to do something on. So I can't wait. I don't know if I'll still be here then, but I'll be in Clearwater and I'll watch it grow. So I'm excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple things. Anybody else have anything else? If not, just a couple things. One is, the city manager does a great job of herding cats and trying to communicate for all five of us, which is, on some issues, more difficult than others. Appreciate her efforts on this, but this is one, at least me, and I know a couple of the other council members have expressed an interest in getting personally involved, giving their own personal input, because it really is critical for the future of this city. And so for us to meet one-on-one with you all from time to time and share that, we'd love to do that, at least I would personally. The second one is, it's, you know, I think what you said just now is really important, that I'm not a developer, and I'm not a big enough developer to have the kind of access to capital that somebody needs to be able to do something really dynamic with this big of a parcel. So I'm open-minded about what might work or not work, but those folks who have that access to capital, who can really do something dynamic, who are closest to what works in today's world and at that location with its proximity to the Gulf of Mexico, to really make downtown Clearwater a place where people not just visit, but they live and they work and they play. There was the National League of Cities meeting in Tampa last week, and they've created pockets of Tampa over there that they have that feel to it. The waterfront, of course, by the wharf is doing really well on Channel Side. And as we had dinner down there one night, and all the mayors were talking about, wow, this is something we really like to do in our community. So I think that's where we need to move the needle, is to make it a mixed use where we have, it's a residential community, but it's also has all those things you would want in a lively suburban area or downtown area. I think that's what we're seeking, and I'm open to ideas and appreciate you sharing that, because and I appreciate CBRE's involvement, because I think your access to those unique developers that might be interested in this type of project, that's going to be really important, because we really want the best ideas from all over the country, all over the world, if somebody from outside of here has a good idea. So I think this is off to a great start. And again, can't tell you how much. Please share it with the commission. how appreciative we are of the county's interest in working with us. To not just, hey, we're out, gone, but, really to work with us to make sure that the footprint that you've held for so many years, and that, back in the day, the pioneers of the county fought for to get the county seat here, you're not just leaving and saying good luck. You're really partnering with us to make sure that this parcel of property, this footprint, is successful for a different person far into the future. So thank you for coming here today, and thank you for your report.
Thank you.
With that, we'll move to item 2.2 on the agenda.
Drew Street project update and local funding agreement.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Lee with Department of Transportation. I'm the project manager overseeing the projects. And let me introduce this Jason Yan with the Stantec overseeing the design. He's a consultant hired by the Department of Transportation. So no further ado, we'll just dive into the projects. All right. So a quick project overview. Pretty much from here, the project location from the Osceola all the way to US 19 is the project limits. We've been kind of going back and forth and looking through this project for the last, I would say, 6 to 9 months. And this is pretty much the hopefully last update as we go, and then we want to go into really in depth of the design. Right now, what you're going to see from Jason Yan, who's an engineer record, is more in essence of like 15 to 20% in the concept level. But with that concept level, we really want to dig into a design. That's the intent. So obviously, though, the entire corridor, our number one priority is safety. It's like similar to real estate agent, they sell this location. Or with us, it's the same thing. It's a safety. So safety of the pedestrian, safety of the other vehicle road, and obviously safety of the vehicle as well. So we'll go through segment by segments, breaking down to pretty much the 5 segments and 3 agencies from City of Clearwater, State, and the county. So we do have some constraint on this job. I'm sure everybody knows it's a very tight corridor. You can feel it driving. You see the car, feel like you're next to each other. So the sidewalk is very narrow. So we're going to go into some of that design side of things. The budget is obviously limited. This is MPO dedicated funds for City of Clearwater. So obviously we're going to go into local funds as well, but this is basically what we want to kind of drive in. We are constrained by the money that was given by the MPOs, and we want to kind of talk about how much we're spending on each segment by segment, how we're going to get there. All right, the next one here.
Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the improvements, the good stuff for the project here. Of course, we're going to start with crash reduction improvements. We're looking at adding turn lanes, intersection improvements. And you can see in some of the pictures, we have a lot of deficiencies along the corridor. You can see that pedestrian issues along here. We have in some areas, no ADA ramps, very lack of striping. So we're going to improve pedestrian safety by rebuilding ramps, correcting sidewalks that are broken and deficient. We're also looking at mid-block crossings, and we'll be working with the city and the county and the MPO for those locations as well. And then we're looking at improving lighting at signalized intersections to make sure those pedestrians are visible at night. In terms of bicycle safety, it's mostly isolated to that first section of the project where we're at Osceola Avenue to Myrtle, where we have the Pinellas Trail, and then you also have Imagine Clearwater. So we're looking at different improvements such as the Pinellas Trail crossing and making that a little bit better. And then also looking at doing a possibility of a separated protected bike lanes along that corridor. Great. So this is the project area. The bold red line is the Drew Street Design Project Corridor. We start off at Osceola Avenue, and we extend all the way to Drew Street, or US 19. Currently, there's about 2 different typical sections along the corridor. From Osceola Avenue to Keene, you have a 4-lane undivided section. And then from Keene to US 19 is a 4-lane divided section. In the future, we're looking to make changes. we are introducing a couple of new configurations that I'll walk through today. For segment 1, we're calling this from Osceola Avenue to Myrtle. You can see in that orange box up on the screen here. This section is going to be, it's got a 4-lane undivided section. And in the future, we're looking at a 2-lane undivided section with the possibility of a protected bicycle facility. Now, this configuration, of course, has to go through final, coordination with the city and the MPO. But this is what we're looking at today. And just to give you an overview of what this area will look like, and this is just a section, a snippet of that segment. We're starting over at Fort Harrison Street. You can see that we're going to be converting all of our span wire signals, which is anytime you see a wire holding up a signal, we're going to be converting those to hard mast arms with metal mast arms. That's going to help with the wind protection, especially during our storm events. At all of the signals, we're going to be doing very similar treatments. We're going to be adding signal back plates that are going to be retroreflective. They'll have a yellow outline around them that's going to really pop when you see when vehicles are approaching. It's also going to have a back plate that's going to block the sun in case you're driving towards the sun. And we're doing also something called, we're implementing a leading pedestrian interval. And for those that don't know, what that is when you're stepping, when you have a pedestrian at the crosswalk and they push the button, they're going to get priority. They're going to get their walk sign before the other vehicles or other people get a green light. So they'll be very visible at the crosswalks. And then we'll be looking at lighting as well, making sure that the signalized sections lighting is sufficient for the pedestrians so they're visible at night. Now, moving on to the conversion of 4-lane to the 2-lane, you can see on the north side, we're introducing what we call a protected bike lane facility. Today, what's happening is that if you see on the right side of your screen, you can see the Pinellas Trail enters Drew Street near the railroad tracks. It travels about 300 feet along Drew Street and then exits north. So essentially, Pinellas Trail is along Drew Street. They're either riding on that wide sidewalk on the north side, or they're traveling along the roadway, sometimes diagonally. So that's a concerning situation. So I believe the protected bike lane will assist with that, especially if we improve that crossing for the Pinellas Trail. We're looking at new markings, possibly lighting, better lighting, and then doing some kind of control for the pedestrians and bicyclists to stop traffic. Segment 2 is Myrtle Avenue to Missouri. Here, this section is mainly going to be unchanged. It's 4-lane undivided. It's going to remain undivided, but that doesn't mean we're not doing improvements. At the signalized intersection, we're still going to do all the things that we mentioned earlier with the back plates and the leading pedestrian intervals and the lighting. We're also looking at doing, at Myrtle Avenue, I don't know if you can see on the screen, but we have an opportunity to create a left turn lane at Myrtle Avenue. So the westbound vehicles that want to turn south will have now a left turn lane. And then at all the side streets, we're going to make sure that the pedestrian crosswalks are high emphasis so that they can be seen for approaching vehicles. And then one other thing I want to point out is that we're doing some drainage improvements. We're still studying the flooding along the corridor, so we'll be looking at the drainage system, make sure it's adequate, and help reduce the flooding along the section here. Segment 3 is Missouri Avenue to Betty Lane. And you can see here, this typical section does change. We're going from a 4-lane undivided to a 4-lane divided. We're going to either have a left turn lane or a center turn lane, dividing the traffic. And this is a zoomed-in area of the Missouri/Cleveland intersection for Drew Street. You can see that one of the challenges at this intersection is when you're approaching it, especially going westbound, you don't know which way to go. It's confusing for a lot of the travelers. So what we're looking at is possibly separating Cleveland from Missouri, creating a second intersection. And then on top of that, we're going to be able to create a left turn lane for Drew Street to turn onto Missouri. In addition, we're going to be doing some additional pedestrian improvements with new ramps and maybe new crosswalks to really highlight and show the pedestrians where they're supposed to be. The other items are, once you get past the intersection of of Missouri, you're going to see that left turn lane, it's going to be converted to a center two-way left turn lane. And that's going to continue all the way to Betty. And this is the Betty Lane intersection. So at Betty Lane, we're able to create a left turn lane here as well. That's going to be about 15% reduction in crashes at this location. And then of course you see the center turn lane and the drainage improvements. But from Betty, we're going to just transition back to the existing conditions and then have back to the four-lane divided, undivided section. From segment 4 is Betty Lane to Keene. Betty Lane to Keene, this is the older slide, but the second typical, there's really no change for this typical. It's a 4-lane undivided. It's going to remain 4-lane undivided. So as you can see here, we're still doing the same signalization improvements that we talked about on the other intersections. There is a section here where there's substandard sidewalk. It's about 2 to 2.5 feet wide. We are going to correct that section with this project and make sure that it's ADA compliant. And then, of course, all the striping that we discussed earlier. For segment 5, this is the segment from Keene to US 19. This section, typical, is pretty much going to remain the same. It's a 4-lane divided section with bike lanes and sidewalk. We're going to keep that same configuration, but in this area, we're looking at installing median islands. Those are going to be raised concrete islands to help break up that center two-way left turn. The next slide gives you a little bit of an example of what that looks like. So you can see that what we don't want are vehicles traveling in that center two-way left turn for extended period, treating that like a through lane. That creates hazards and additional conflicts. So these concrete islands are to be constructed so that we can break that up, but we're also going to make sure that we're not impacting access at any of the locations to the properties. Last but not least, we're looking at mid-block crossings. We have funding in our project right now for 2 mid-block crossings along the corridor. So we'll be working really close with the city and Fort Pinellas and the county on those locations. So, thank you.
Well, just one more thing, just let you know, some of those no-bill, we are milling and resurfacing of entire corridors, to be honest. I think Jason forgot to mention that, but we got to look at the cracks of the entire corridor, and we want to make sure we want to find a mitigation measure to mill some of those cracks and then put back a better pavement, obviously, so the entire corridor. So, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Okay, questions from the council? Councilmember Marino?
All right, thank you for being here today. Thank you for your time. I know Drew Street's been on our minds for quite a while here in the city, and as you said, safety is paramount, the #1 priority, so it seems like we're addressing it. Just to go through, if you don't mind, Mayor, real quick. Segment 1, finally finding a way to safely connect our Pinellas Trail. I think is a huge opportunity in our community. I'm glad we focused time on that, and hardening segments of this entire corridor for storms and things that we keep seeing. Probably smart for the long run and saving some taxpayers' money. I will jump into segment 4. I think that's one of the concerns that are of a lot of our community members. I'm sure council's hearing quite a lot of bit about it, Betty Lane to Keene. I know we're extremely limited through there, making ADA compliant sidewalks, and there's probably much needed. We've all walked that many a times. There are some sections that are extremely narrow and dangerous, and that'll be welcome in our community. When you say no change, has there been any discussion, I know we've talked about it in the past with Justin, on consistency of speed limits through there? I know some of those communities connected on both sides, north and south of Drew Street, have issued that concern before, that speed limit jumps several times. Is there any discussions on consistency or lowering that?
We are looking at that mitigation measurement of there being consistent throughout the corridor. As I mentioned before, we're in the essence of concept design, but when we get into detailed design, I think we're going to go down to whether it be 35, 45, whatever the speed might be, makes sense throughout the corridor and be consistent. So, yeah, we will have to take a look at it with our operation engineers and our district design engineer to kind of go over that, what makes sense for the corridor. But definitely, that's one of the target things that we are looking at and see what speed it should be and how we can mitigate some of that effort.
And then I thank you for adding the two mid-block crossing discussions. I know we have some in the community on, again, the north side of Drew Street that are interested in getting over to Crest Lake Park and crossing Drew Street. There really isn't unless you're at that light. That is a challenge. I think also a mid-block crossing somewhere in there may have a way to mitigate speed and traffic as it comes through there. I hope we do look at that segment for one, but I greatly appreciate you being out here today and presenting for us. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, that was my biggest concern was this segment right here. Didn't seem like, and I understand why we couldn't really do much with enlarging it because of the right-of-way, we didn't have it. But the neighborhood was very concerned about this section, and it says potential for 2 pedestrian mid-block crossings. Probably one at Crest and maybe one at Lake would be good, because that's in the neighborhood. Once you get west and east of there, you go down the hill, you've got the country club and you've got apartments down there. But what will it take to, you say potential, when would we determine those locations? Is that once we get started on this?
We're going to want to locate those as early as possible. It's going to be one of our first things after we get the go-ahead to move forward with this concept, is to start coordinating with the city and Fort Pinellas and the county, because we've got requests from different locations, and it's just a matter of, all right, which one are the priorities and which ones need to be constructed first.
Okay.
So just give you a timeline, I would say 3 to 4 months, you will have some sort of design per se,
Okay.
is kind of locking down.
I'm going to be asked that, so no, for the people that aren't watching this, they're going to be asking me about it, so I'll be able to report to them that we'll be discussing it, and then pinpointing where those crossings will be. I think will be real important. Thank you.
Councilmember Ricardo?
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for coming out today. I do have a few things to ask. One of those being, while you guys are doing your building, will we be able to still work to upgrade our infrastructure? Because I think that we're end of life on that. So that's going to be big, and I would love to be able to have the opportunity to do that. So I don't know if you guys know that, or Dan, if you might.
Once they start getting into design, our utilities team will take a look at it, and we'll see if there's opportunities for us to take advantage of both people digging up the dirt.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. And then the second one, I'm going to jump on the same segment here, segment 4, that being a big neighborhood across from one of our bigger parks, Crest Lake, and a lot of the residents on the north end of Drew Street, it is unsafe for them to come over. And I don't necessarily think, so correct me if I'm wrong, that your mid-block crossings were going to be utilized here. During the presentation, it looked like they were going to be in segment 5.
Oh, not necessarily.
Okay.
No,
All right.
no, we really don't have a lockdown of where those 2 locations are.
Okay, perfect.
Segment 5 does have potential, and we've had some requests, but same with segment 4.
Okay. Segment 4, I think, is going to be a massive place to put those for that community that I just noted. And, to the intersections, because I don't think you can have them so close to each other that'll cause its own problems, right? So maybe the width of the park, so Glenwood and then followed by Lake might be good places for that. It leaves Crest kind of open, but still gives you enough time. Again, you guys are the engineers. I'll trust what you come up with, but that's just kind of food for thought. And then, maybe some of those, again, you know what it's called, but I would assume that has the LED lights that notify for traffic to stop so that people can safely cross. So I do appreciate you bringing that up as part of the design and the build. So I look forward to what you guys have, because we definitely want to make this road safer, as everybody has expressed, and I think that these ways that you guys are coming up with are going to do that. So thank you.
So a lot of it has been asked and answered. So I think the only thing I have left on my notes is the turning lanes. I'm relieved to see them. I know that those turning lanes are needed, and they're based on the crash data. So the 2 turning lanes, I think, will have a big benefit, and I'm glad to see them. And everything else has been asked and answered.
Just FYI, we can add additional metabolic processing industry. Because I don't think we're locked down to 2. If it's 3, then so be it. I just got a tap on my shoulder. Make it work, so.
So we can bump it up
Yeah,
to
so
3?
just-
Will you throw another one in there?
Yeah. The big guy comes.
Yeah. Now that's negotiating.
Well, thanks, guys, I do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, appreciate you coming and working with us too. I wouldn't, on one hand, I wouldn't say this project has had a lot of drama, but it's had a lot of drama since 3 of us have been sworn in. So a lot of attention to it and just trying to find a compromise to satisfy all different parts of our community. And I feel like we're doing that. And the 2 intersections that were the places where the most accidents were occurring, those are addressed as part of this plan. There are some other things which maybe don't get done in this phase, but I'd wanted to let the community know, those who live along Drew Street have expressed their concern about some of these areas, particularly the segment from Betty Lane to Keene. We're not necessarily done here. We're just trying to get going with making improvements to make the road safer today and soon. And there may be other improvements we can make down the road, but we wanted to do something now. And addressing those 2 dangerous intersections seem to be the most important thing to do now. So again, there are other possibilities down the road we can do, and hopefully we'll have some positive economic development along Drew Street coming in future years, and we'll have an opportunity to look at other parts of Drew and extending improvements out. But for now, this is a great effort to immediately make a portion of it, the most significant portion as far as accidents, safer. So thank you for your time and your efforts.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move to item 3.1 on the agenda.
Approve a local funding agreement between the State of Florida Department of Transportation and the City of Clearwater to make modification improvements on Drew Street.
Mayor and Council, this is a companion piece to this. You just had the presentation. This would actually be for the funding. So you know that FDOT is here if you have any questions of FDOT or the team, but that's what this is.
Okay, any questions on this one?
Yeah, just to make sure for clarification, when we're talking about 3 million, are we talking about the entire span of the corridor and all 5 segments?
So that is the estimate that we have been provided by FDOT at this time, that would be the city's cost.
Thank you.
I guess I do have one as well. Again, going back to infrastructure, I think that this is the time to increase that infrastructure if the road's going to be tore up. So is that taken into account, increasing that infrastructure cost, or is that what we'll talk about when utilities gets with their design and then we'll overcome that mountain at that time?
Yeah, this $3 million is to help support the project that FDOT talked about today. Any type of work we do on the utilities would be paid by the enterprise fund, so we would pay for it out of there.
Understood, thank you.
It would be in addition, so the 3 million
Yes.
is
Yep,
not.
perfect.
And this is an up to number. I mean, it's not, they were going to try to keep it as low as they could. If they needed to know, they could go up to 3 million.
Correct.
Right. Yeah. So it's not a hard and fast 3 million. It's just the authority for us to contribute an extra 3 million if needed.
I mean, they are anticipating that that's what the 3 million, that it'll cost the city 3 million.
Up to.
Yeah, yes.
But they're going to try to do it for less.
It's a bargain at 3.
It is the ceiling.
That's what I thought. I thought you were the one who told us that. So just making sure I understand. It's good you're here. Thanks for being here today.
Just before we move on, I mean, as drafted, the agreement calls for us to deposit $3 million with them. Now, how that money ends up getting used, whether the full balance gets used is a different question, but as drafted, we are required to put $3 million on deposit with them. So I want to make sure everyone understands that that's what has been drafted. If that does not align with the council's expectation or intent, this is the moment to articulate that.
I'm fine with it. Is this going to be a consent item, or is this?
Actually, that was going to be my question to
Yeah,
council. It can
he's
go
gonna
on
explain here a
consent,
little
but
bit what the proposal is.
I wasn't sure.
All right, so just an all FDOT, so yes, we do generally require it all on deposit. And then what we do is when we actually get bids and harden the number, we return whatever funds we don't need.
That's
So,
what I thought.
Yeah, so it just goes into an escrow, and then whatever we don't use, we'll ship back, so,
That's what I thought.
yeah.
Just want to make sure that's what everyone
Yeah,
is
good.
expecting, so.
You got
Thank
what you
you.
want.
Okay, any other? Good. All right, we'll move to item 3.2 on the agenda.
Council, before we move on, do we want to place it on consent or keep it off consent?
On consent.
I'm okay with that. one,
Okay.
consent.
I'm good.
Yes,
Anybody?
I'm good.
Consent.
Consent, okay? Yeah, we have consent. Agenda item 3.2.
Approve an agreement between Pinellas County and the City of Clearwater to transfer received funds in the amount of $442,000.42 for the City County Fund of the opioid litigation.
Dan Slaughter, Assistant City Manager. This particular item is a result of, there's multiple revenue streams that are coming in related, associated with the opioid settlement. This particular one comes directly to the city. There was a narrow list of programs that you can implement and use these funds for. After talking with the police chief and the fire chief, they're on that list. There wasn't anything we wanted to do independently, but collectively in partnership with the county, they have started a program that is called Pinellas Matters, and it is outreach in the hospitals and the emergency rooms. It helps connect people who are suffering from overdose addictions to services. It's kind of started as a pilot in 2023 at Bayfront, and now is expanded into Northside, and they are eyeing Largo next, and hopefully some of the City of Clearwater hospitals as well. So it is our goal to go ahead and transfer those funds to the county, so collectively we can participate in this program countywide. And it is, right now, we currently have $442,000 that we've already received. After this is approved, those funds will go directly to the county. We will not receive them anymore. And we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Discussion?
I don't have a question, just a comment. I mean, I'm glad to see that there is a program that's helping this. I mean, when you see some of these numbers, like 30 opiate-related deaths each month in Pinellas County, that's heartbreaking. And I'm glad that, you know, there's an effort and funds going to continue our community to help fight it.
Thank you.
I will be sharing with you all the results of the gap analysis that the opioid task force sent out, and then you will get more information on what the county is facing, and also in relation to the rest of Florida. So you'll be receiving that information shortly.
I guess I would just want to make sure that it's, you know, the amount we're contributing, and we get, you know, percentage back, you know, however that's distributed, because you would know more so than I would with the task force, but I don't think the opioid problem throughout the county is a countywide problem, I get it. But I do know that there are certain parts of the county that they have heavy problems. So I certainly want to make sure whatever our part is, that, you know, we get back our fair share of whatever is given to the county and services.
Sir.
Yeah. Okay, do we have consent?
Yes.
Okay, we have consent. 3.2, agenda item 3.3.
Approve a 2-year funding agreement in the amount of $649,983.30 between Pinellas Suncoast Transit and the City of Clearwater.
Dan Slaughter, Assistant City Manager. This is kind of an annual funding agreement we've done with PSTA for multiple years since 2016. It is a budgeted expense. It is pretty much the same agreement that was in place the previous year, just renewing it. This particular route supports the beach trolley route and about 250,000 customers a year. And in light of where we're going in this next year with some parking shortages due to the marina project and some other things, it's a really good time to make sure that we're continuing providing those kind of service. More than happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Council discussion? I want to say that the Jolly Trolley is tremendously important to our tourism community, and they need tons of support right now, so appreciate us approving this. So, do we have consent on this one?
Yes.
We have consent on 3.3. 4.1.
Approve the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program Project Grant Agreement for the renovations and improvements of Edgewater Drive Park.
You moved too fast. Good afternoon. I don't know what's going to come out, so good afternoon. Sometimes it's good and sometimes not. On August 31st, 23, the city applied for a FERDAP grant for Edgewater Drive renovation project. I sound terrible.
You do.
Gee, I don't feel that bad. No, I look that bad. On July 3rd, 24, the city received word that we were awarded the grant. This item basically closes the loop and is the approval of the agreement with the state. I'm available to answer any questions. Short.
Any discussion on the 4.1?
No, just a quick comment. I think it's a great addition to that aspect of our community. I know when we talked about this in the past, and I have been in that Edgewater Neighborhood Association, and this was a topic of discussion. They were really interested in hoping that they were a part of the process of collaboration on what's being done in there. I was just, verifying that they were going to be a part of the process.
They were, and we
Good.
did meet with them at their last meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.
And any other discussion? Do we have consent on 4.1?
Yes.
Yes.
We have consent on agenda item 4.1. Agenda item 4.2.
Ratify and confirm a purchase order with P&R Renovations and Pro Coatings of Clearwater, Florida for commercial restoration services needed at several parks and recreation buildings due to flooding caused by hurricanes Helene and Milton, in an amount of $608,225.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Helene on September 26th and 27th, Parks and Recreation Department activated a purchase order with P&R Renovations to perform cleaning, removal of debris, somebody ought to read this for me, removal of the carpet, flooring, drywall, and the other things that we needed to protect our facilities. Many of the facilities were all Parks and Recreation buildings. You have that listed there in your agenda item. The Clearwater Beach Recreation Center was one of the main ones, as well as Carpenter and the FDOT building. Parks and Recreation chose P&R Renovations to do this work, as we had already established a relationship with them by doing other work with them in the past. They were ready with all the equipment that they needed, the dryers and those types of things. And they were on the job the day after the storm to assess the damage with city staff. I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay. Any discussion on 4.2? If not, do we have consent? Yes. We have consent on 4.2. And just, I know you've got a couple others here, but we can't thank our Parks and Recreation Department enough for the absolutely amazing job they've done with all of our city assets. We were out there this morning for a press conference with a generous donation that John Middleton from the Philadelphia Phillies made, and so many comments just how remarkable it is that our beach looks very close to what it did before these hurricanes.
Thank you.
And I know I've heard that up and down, we all have, from beach businesses and residents, and your team has done an amazing job. All of our city employees, but the Parks and Recreation guys, Matt and those guys, amazing job, and thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We are blessed to have wonderful employees in Parks and Recreation Department.
Yeah. Okay, agenda item 4.3.
Ratify and confirm a purchase order with Florida Structural Group of Fort Myers, Florida for emergency cleanup removal of the Clearwater Community Sailing Center floating docks and pilings destroyed by Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton.
This is to ratify and confirm the work we did at the Community Sailing Center. As you know, both of those docks were destroyed with the first hurricane, and before we could get out and clean off the mess, the next hurricane came. So this was just an emergency purchase order to clean it up. We have to remove all the pilings, and we're looking at a different type of solution to those docks in the future.
Any discussion on 4.3?
Yep.
Just to save your voice and just to clarify for those, all those people watching, this is anticipated to be reimbursed by FEMA. These
Absolutely,
these,
yes, it is.
Agenda items, okay.
Just to be clear, I have not necessarily given that legal opinion. I'll certainly defer to
Anticipated.
Right, I'll defer to conversations that were had with Tetra Tech, who is the city's FEMA consultant, but the city attorney's office has not given an opinion on that matter.
Do you have something?
No.
No? Okay. Do we have consent on 4.3?
Council members, this item is to be tabled, and really, there's no motion needed, as in the last meeting, the first reading was continued to indefinitely, actually, so no action is needed, but it was advertised and noticed for this meeting, so that's why it's on the agenda.
Thank you again, Mr. Cater, and thank you for all your team.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. Next time, I hope you'll have my voice back.
We hope so,
Thank you
too.
For putting up with it.
We're not exactly sure everything you said, but we trust you. You've been around a long time, so. Okay, agenda item 5.1.
Approve a 5-year renewal agreement with Axon Enterprise Incorporated for a video and data collaboration software platform.
Good afternoon. I'm Natalia Illich-Haley Major with Clearwater Police Department. In 2020, City Council authorized the purchase of technology and equipment to implement and construct a real-time operations center, referred to as the ROC, within the police headquarters. The ROC provides the agency with live intelligence relating to emerging criminal threats to citizens and officer safety, and provides investigative leads using security cameras, license plate reader cameras, and other various databases. In 2022, City Council authorized the purchase of the Fusus software platform to enhance the capabilities of the ROC. The Fusus platform provides the ROC the ability to view several sources of information and intelligence on a single pane of glass, to include computer-aided dispatch data, officer location information, license plate reader data, and video feeds from both private and public cameras, just to name a few. The Fusus platform allows investigators the ability to view and access these video feeds and provide a map view with instant access to secondary applications. Accessing these data resources results in real-time intelligence, which can be provided to dispatch, responding units, and detectives while enhancing citizen, officer, and community safety. In January 2024, Fusus was acquired by Axon Enterprise and maintained the existing Fusus platform, which the agency uses. In September 2024, CPD transitioned the remaining year of the Fusus agreement to Axon, and that agreement will expire in June 2025. Although the requested renewal agreement would not commence until June 2025, Axon has offered current pricing if the renewal is signed by the end of the 2024 calendar year. The police department has funding available for the first year of the agreement with no needed adjustment to the fiscal year 25 budget, and future fiscal year's funding will be requested through the annual operating budget process. We're requesting approval to renew a 5-year renewal agreement with Axon for the Fusus software platform. I'm prepared to answer any questions.
Any questions on agenda item 5.1?
I've got one real quick. So you said if we sign before the end of the year that we do get a discount, is that what essentially is happening? Current
Exactly,
pricing,
yes.
okay, instead of any increase. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, nothing else? Do we have consent on 5.1?
Yes.
Yes.
We have consent on agenda item 5.1. 5.2.
Approve a purchase order to Pinellas Regional Information Management Enterprise for the personnel and operating expense of Prime.
Natalia Illich-Haley, Major with Clearwater Police again. In 2019, Pinellas County Public Safety agencies began working on a unified computer-aided dispatch and records management system. Since 2007, the Clearwater Police Department has been using TriTech, and while it has served the department's needs, it does not integrate with other public safety entities in the county. In 2022, Council approved an interlocal agreement between the City of Clearwater, City of Largo, City of Pinellas Park, and the Pinellas County Sheriff to create the administrative entity of Prime, which is the Pinellas Regional Information Management Enterprise, and agreed to participate in the purchase, implementation, and operation of a shared computer-aided dispatch and records management system. Based on the agreed interlocal agreement, each party is responsible to pay a pro-rata share of the cost of the CADS RMS product and the pro-rata share for the personnel and operating costs of Prime based on the number of user licenses per party. The City of Clearwater's pro-rata responsibility for fiscal year 2025 is $318,096. And I'm prepared to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussion on agenda item 5.2? If none, do we have consent?
Yes.
Yes.
We have consent on agenda item 5.2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item 6.1.
Approve the final plat for Somerset located on the southwest corner of Somerset Street and Mandalay Avenue.
Good afternoon, Council. Kyle Vaughn, Public Works Department. The proposed plat will create a 4-lot subdivision situated on approximately 0.4 acres with no additional right-of-way to be dedicated. and I can take your questions.
Any questions or discussion on agenda item 6.1? If none, do we have consent? Yes. We have consent on agenda item 6.1.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 6.2.
Approve a purchase order to Arthur J. Gallagher Risk Management Services for a builder's risk policy for the new City Hall project.
Afternoon, Mayor, council members, Marcus Williamson, Public Works Director. So when the builder's risk had come up for the marina project, one of the discussions was how can we look at some different improvements we're out. So we did implement that in this one. We went out to the CMAR on the City Hall project, got an additional quote for the builder's risk also. So what you'll see in front of you is it's a not to exceed for the $275,000 that is in the budget within the project. The project's still under budget currently. So the reason it's a not to exceed is we've got two different numbers. So Risk has been going through comparing these two different numbers. Currently, the construction manager's quote, they're both through Gallagher, is slightly less. So they've been going back and forth, kind of comparing the numbers and what that means. We are looking to use the owner direct purchases, which has the sales tax savings in it. Because of that, there's legal requirements on the city having to carry the builder's risk. So we've gone back and forth a little bit with them. I'm sure the city attorney can add some additional details, but there are a couple of comments that if we go through the CMAR's builder's risk, that they would have to meet, namely, we would clearly have to pay for it. They'd have to have us as an additional insured in it, and then if funds were paid out towards that, the city would have to receive those funds. So Ajax has confirmed all three of those. So right now, it's really, Risk is just evaluating which is going to be in the best interest of the city to move forward. So they are here if there's any specific questions. But at this time, because they haven't finalized all that, but we do need to get it in place as soon as they make that determination. We've got the not to exceed amount. So standing by for any questions you might have.
Okay. Questions from the council?
No question, just a comment. I thank you for hearing the comments and concerns we had in the last process and for being flexible and adapting and efficiently managing this one. That's appreciated.
And by best interest of the city, that means essentially it's cheaper for us in the end of the day.
So there's a couple of different factors they were looking at, and again, Gerard can jump up. So there's the cheaper, and then there's also what coverage it includes both of them. So right now, the Ajax is lower. They've done some evaluation, I think, on what those the coverages are. There's some slight difference between the two of them. And then it was just confirming with the owner direct purchase that we can still, so Ajax has said they've done it for other municipalities where you just pay them. And in this case, because the city was planning on awarding it directly, it is a physical change order that we will give them to award it if we go that route. So it's very clear that we're paying them. But there was a couple other stipulations. I don't know if the city attorney wanted to opine any of that.
Sure, why not? So, I mean, just for general context, especially for the benefit of the public, just to kind of back up a little bit, when we talk about construction projects, whether it's for the city of Clearwater or even in private sector, there are several different types of insurance or several different liabilities that can arise. Builder's risk specifically covers the site, the materials, temporarily during construction. That's all it is. It's not our permanent long-term policy. It's not a bid bond. It's not a payment bond. It doesn't take care of subcontractors. It's purely to ensure our materials and our site during construction so that if there's a flood, fire, theft, hurricane, et cetera, that's what's covered under builder's risk. Builder's risk is not strictly required as a matter of law. However, I do think it's pretty common practice in the public sector to obtain builder's risk. I would say that's pretty conventional wisdom, and so Clearwater certainly is in good company in that regard. And even if it were not a strict requirement, which I technically don't think it is, most construction managers are going to insist upon it in order to commence work. So the fact that we acquire whether it's through the construction manager or on our own, the fact that we acquire builder's risk is not controversial or problematic in and of itself. I think that's pretty much expected. It's just a question of how we procure builder's risk and what do we end up paying for it is really the gravamen of it. And so we've had a lot of conversations recently about how we do that. The simple answer would be, well, why don't we just go with what's least expensive? And that would normally make sense, whether we're just comparing our own price quotes that we get through our own insurance broker versus what we could procure through our construction manager, which in this case is Ajax. The complicating factor in the public sector is that all of our materials purchases are tax exempt if we buy them directly, meaning that we don't pay sales tax on them. Right. The Department of Revenue has certain rules that we have to follow as a public entity if we want to buy materials directly and if we want those materials to be tax exempt. So we have to approach it very carefully. One strategy that can guarantee that we will get the tax exemption through the Department of Revenue is to procure builder's risk on our own, and that is a very safe way of doing it. So that is historically what the City of Clearwater has done. Buy it on our own, that guarantees that we will take advantage of the sales tax exemption. I think recently we've had an opportunity to, I would say challenge, that practice or reevaluate some of those practices for two reasons. Number one, we don't use owner direct purchase in every single project. So in a project where we're not using owner direct purchase, we don't necessarily have to buy the material. We don't necessarily have to buy builder's risk on our own because we don't have that issue with the Department of Revenue. Second, in a situation like this one with New City Hall, where we are buying materials on our own, there are ways that we can structure it, as Ajax has pointed out to us, that we can procure the builder's risk through them and still preserve the sales tax exemption. I think that we have played it very safe as a city, which is commendable up until now, but I do agree with Ajax that if we structure it appropriately, there are ways that we can potentially procure builder's risk through our construction manager. And if that turns out to be less expensive for the city, which in this case it very well might be, then that may be a more cost-effective option for us going forward. So that's something that we're looking at. The one other comment I'm going to make, and this is very early days, so I'm going to make this comment in a very reserved manner, but as I understand it, and Marcus or Todd can correct me if I'm wrong, Ajax was also looking at price quotes through Arthur Gallagher, who is the same broker that we use. And if I've misstated that, then tell me otherwise. But that came as a little bit of a surprise to me that Ajax's price quote through Arthur Gallagher was less and significantly less than what we were getting quoted by Arthur Gallagher. This is something that I want to look at a little bit more closely, and so I've asked our attorneys in the city attorney's office to get together with risk management and see if we can evaluate our contracts with Gallagher to identify the fiduciary relationship we have with them and how exactly that is structured. Now, as Marcus said, there may be differences in the coverage, so I don't want to jump to any conclusions on it, but I do think that the price difference that Ajax is telling us through Gallagher is significantly different than what we are being potentially quoted as a not to exceed amount. And I do think it's worth having that conversation, potentially at least want to look at it and understand what our relationship with Gallagher looks like and what their fiduciary duties may be to the city. Because for me, that's been potentially a takeaway from this process. I don't know if Marcus or Todd have anything to add on that.
So if it helps, the city's was 267,000 and Ajax's was 141. So
right, so almost half.
It's a lot.
Right.
Okay.
So certainly enough of a difference that we want to look at it a little bit and get a handle on what that relationship looks like and why it is that we're getting quoted by Gallagher some very different pricing. And again, there may be very good explanations that we just need to get to the bottom of, but I think it's significant enough that it does warrant some investigation.
there are some coverage differences. I don't know if you want to talk to that.
I mean, there's a lot of differences across all the quotes, but to speak to your comment earlier that we had the opportunity on this particular scenario to get quotes on both sides, one from the contractor, one from our broker. It just so happened that they shared the same broker. The difference, a lot of the difference may be due to the fact that the contractor gets a master policy for their builder's risk nationwide. And that's why their book of business is larger. That's why the quote is coming in lower. But to David's point, I think it's a good idea for us to compare, especially now that we can get tax savings on either direction. And that'll be built into our process moving forward instead of us playing catch up like we did after the marina project. We'll have that before we go into a project, before we get GMP.
Councilmember Cotton.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you, David, for bringing that to our attention, and thank you for giving us the potential might be that master policy that you're just referring to. Is that something that we'll be able to know if that's why they get such a discounted cost?
It's certainly that, because our representative here in Florida for our broker, they are established just for the state of Florida, the broker we use, Gallagher.
Yeah.
They just called up when they found out they were repped by Gallagher from Ajax. They called the other broker rep, and they were able to compare policies and how the policy was structured. So we do know that that's the case. The challenge is that in most cases, when a contractor is not represented by the same broker, we won't be privy to that information, which would be one of the changes I'm going to suggest, that we require that in our contract, that we need certain limits that we don't share. That's the main risk, is a contractor could have shared limits. So it says 10 million, but there's 3 other projects in the region that get hammered at the same time we do, and so we're sharing that limit. So that was the main feedback from our broker on why we want to double check the contractor's quote. But if it's apples to apples, we should take advantage of their market power and build that into the front end of our agreement.
Well, I do appreciate you guys doing your homework and getting to the bottom of that, because at the end of the day, I mean, we need to make sure that we're trying to maximize the taxpayers' money. So if coming to the end of it and Gallagher, there's another broker that would meet our needs that's going to give us that cost savings, Todd, I'm sure you're going to be on top of that. But I appreciate you guys catching it and letting us know.
All right, thank you.
Definitely felt like a collaborative approach as we went through to implement that, so appreciate it.
Okay. Further discussion? Okay, do we have consent on agenda item 6.2?
Yes.
Consent on 6.2. 7.1.
Authorize 2 task orders for Tetra Tech for debris monitoring services as a result of Hurricane Debbie and Hurricane Helene and Milton.
Good afternoon. Javon Graham, Division Chief Emergency Management. There is one adjustment with the actual wording of the title. Tetra does a lot of different functions for us, their engineering, their debris management, their disaster consultants. This one is actually for the disaster consulting component, which the items you had in your attachments or in your agenda items were the ones for the disaster recovery consultant. The debris is a different actual agenda item. So the state and counties received multiple major disaster declarations, which affords us the ability to respond and recover from the impacts of Hurricanes Debbie, Helene, and Milton. The 2 task orders before you allow Tetra Tech, as our disaster recovery consultant, to provide support with the FEMA public assistance recovery process in a cumulative amount of $1,383,768. The focus will be on reimbursements for debris removal, emergency protective measures, management costs, and other eligible expenses. With that, I know this conversation may come up. FEMA provides contributions for management costs based on actual costs incurred up to 5% of the total award amount for the incident. Therefore, these Tetra Tech expenses are FEMA eligible, and most, if not all, of their costs are reimbursable under Cat Z management costs and administrative expenses. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the council?
I guess I just have one. Chief, you said that it was it's not the debris monitoring service? Is that
Debris
correct?
is a different one. That's
Yes.
under Cat A. So
So-
that's.
So I will be amending the agenda item before.
I just figured it was
No,
maybe
no,
a
no.
typo
We
here.
talked
If we're
about
throwing
this,
it
it'll
on
be adjusted
consent.
for Thursday, it will be adjusted to the exact wording.
Perfect, thanks, sir.
Okay. Do we have consent?
Yes.
We have consent on 7.1. Thank you. 7.2.
Authorize purchase order municipal emergency services at Pinellas Park and 10-8 fire equipment for the purchase of personal protective equipment, tools, and equipment communication systems.
Good afternoon, everybody. Marvin Pettengill, Deputy Chief, Clearwater Fire and Rescue. This item before you is to request approval for the purchase of personal protective equipment, tools, communication systems, air pack parts, and miscellaneous equipment, for a not to exceed amount of $625,000 to Municipal Emergency Services of Pinellas Park, and 10-8 Fire Equipment of Bradenton. Excuse me. This dollar figure will provide the needed funds from October 1st, 2024 to September 30th, 2025. These items include $287,297 for replacement of PPE turnout gear, $55,000 for safety shoes per IAFF contract, $35,000 for annual hearse repairs and inspections, $20,000 for annual firefighting foam, $7,500 for new communication systems, $25,000 for the Clearwater Police Department, and $195,203 for various PPE and repair parts. Funds are available for this item in the various CIP projects to include Personal Protective Equipment Fund 91261, SCBA Replace and Upgrade 91229, and Extrication Tools 91263. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussion on agenda item 7.2? Do we have consent?
Yes.
We have consent on agenda item 7.2. Thank you. Agenda item 8.1.
Authorize a work order to Fair and Piers Corporation to prepare an active transportation plan that will update and replace the city's shifting gears bicycle pedestrian master plan.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm Rick Hartman, Transportation Planner for the city. Here to present a request for a work order to update the 2006 Shifting Gears Bicycle Pedestrian Plan and update it into an active transportation plan. We've selected Fair and Piers to be the consultant on this for a couple reasons. They've had extensive experience developing active transportation plans in the state of Florida, but just as important is they recently updated the Forward Pinellas Active Transportation Plan. So they are very familiar with Clearwater and the data needs that we have. What the plan will do was it'll identify active transportation networks. It'll also prioritize corridors and intersections for different safety improvements and develop some initial concepts for those areas from which we can take the next steps as a city. One of the process will include a technical committee of different department members, and we'll meet bi-monthly with Fair and Piers. We'll also have a stakeholder group that'll be formed by members of the public. And also, we will do public engagement, having online and in-person meetings. Along this process, so about a midpoint, we'll come back to the council with what the initial findings have been to get your input and guidance on what we're going to do. The process will take about 16 months through adoption, which would be approximately February 2026. That's it. If you have any questions, be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any questions for discussion with the council? Councilmember Menino.
Yeah, I don't have a question, just a comment after reading the scope, budget, and timeline. A lot of information there. But I do have keen interest in this process, in the 16-month process going forward. I think this does a lot of stuff for our community and is very important. I don't want you to think this council's overlooking it by any means. It covers safety and connectivity gaps in our current network. We have equity concerns in underserved communities it's going to cover. Identifying barriers and opportunities related to codes and policies is very important, and also accounts hopefully for future growth and infrastructure changes as we're seeing a lot of changes through Drew Street, downtown, and a lot of places. So again, I have keen interest in this. I look forward to the process moving forward.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Other questions, discussion? If not, do we have consent?
Yes.
We have consent on agenda item 8.1. Thank you. 8.2.
Ratify and confirm a purchase order with Tetra Tech for substantial damage assessment as a result of Hurricanes Helene and Milton.
Good afternoon, Gina Clayton, Planning and Development. As you know, we are obligated to perform substantial damage in special flood hazard areas after disaster events. And given the extensive impacts that we have experienced with Hurricanes Helene and Milton and the labor-intensive nature of the substantial damage estimating process, or the SDE, we quickly realized that we could not maintain current departmental operations and conduct the SDE. So due to the urgency of needing to identify hazardous conditions that may still exist out in the community and to ensure the timely completion of the SDE process so property owners can make decisions about repairing their homes or rebuilding, the city manager approved a task order in the amount of $1,517,563.20 under the emergency purchasing provisions of Section 2.5631K of the Code of Ordinance and the existing competitively bid agreement with Tetra Tech. So we're hiring Tetra Tech so that we can continue there in the department to do our essential functions while addressing disaster assessments as fast as we can, and to complete the process within 180 days after the disaster declaration, so that hopefully the cost can be eligible for reimbursement from the Category G project. So the bulk of this work, it's a not to exceed, and we are moving quicker than I think we anticipated or the consultants anticipated. But the majority of the work is in the SDE process, the initial inspections that they're doing, and then if people decide that they would like to appeal those determinations, there's a lot of follow-up work that has to be done. This contract also will allow us to have 2 building plans examiners doing plan review for beach-related projects that are storm-related, so that we can get our staff back to be working on the other work that we have within the department, so we can continue to have this very streamlined approval process. We are asking that you ratify and confirm this task order. I do want to say, for the record, we're issuing permits on the beach, and we have been issuing, and we will continue to work with people. So I'm here to answer questions, and if you have any for Gene Henry, our floodplain administrator, or Kevin Garriott, our building official, we can answer those questions for you.
Questions from council? I'd just like to thank you for the session Saturday. Thank the 2 gentlemen here for participating in that. It was very, very helpful to the average homeowner or business owner. All these rules are very confusing, and then they hear rumors from throughout the county, and I'd say 80% or more are inaccurate, but they hear rumors and just a lot of confusion. And I had a number of people, residents who have been impacted by it, thank me for the way our staff, put that together and has been addressing things. And this work is obviously not cheap that these folks have come in and done, but I can tell you it's been so important for us to get out there and get all this done quickly to help people.
Right.
And
we've had a lot of people come in and pull permits. They're not substantially damaged. We've been able to document that. Gene has talked to multiple people on multiple occasions. I hope the number of actual substantially damaged properties is going to be low based on what we're seeing. We're hopeful, but a lot of people are already making decisions that they want to elevate because they don't want to go through this again.
And I thought the message came through really clear to those who are here too, and appreciate them sharing it. We're trying to help people. At the same time, we have to help the entire community maintain our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program.
Right.
And we want to help folks as much as we can navigate all that, but it's we can't jeopardize our participation in that program by how we handle this. So thank you again for doing this, and council probably already tell you all, you already know this is very important, this work that they've done. So with that, do we have consent?
Yes. Thank you.
We have consent on agenda item 8.2. Agenda item 9.1.
Approve a work order to Mead and Hunt for design and construction engineering services for the RO1 chemical storage and feed improvement project.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Rich Gardner, Director of Public Utilities. This authorization allows a work order with Mead and Hunt for design and construction engineering for the RO1 Chemical Storage and Feed Improvement Project in the amount of $495,731 for improvement to the chemical storage and feed system at the RO1 water production facility. Design and construction will enhance the system performance, mitigate the risk of chemical leaks, and improve chemical safety. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions on agenda item 9.1? Okay, do we have consent?
Yep.
We have consent on agenda item 9.1. Thank you. Agenda item 9.2.
Approve a purchase order of Rexall USA for the purchase of Allen Bradley products and related services in an annual not to exceed amount of $450,000.
Rich Gardner, Director of Public Utilities. The item before you today is a purchase order for Allen Bradley Programmable Logic Controllers, PLCs, parts and maintenance. This equipment is used to control process equipment in our water and wastewater facilities. The purchase order is with Rexall USA and is for a not-to-exceed amount of $450,000. It covers the initial period of October 1st, 2024 through September 30th, 2025, with the option for 2 one-year renewals. I'm asking for you to authorize the purchase order, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or discussion on this agenda item? Hearing seeing none, do we have consent?
Yep.
We have consent on agenda item 9.2. Thank you, Mr. Gardner. Agenda item 10.1.
Ratify and confirm a purchase order to Encore Broadcast Solutions for audiovisual and broadcast equipment.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. I'm bringing forward an agenda item for the audio system and video system that we upgraded at the beginning of the year. I'm not sure that all of you were on council then, but we were having some serious audio issues, so we upgraded multiple pieces of equipment. And without getting into too much of the technicalities of it, the more new equipment and software that we put in, the more we needed to upgrade the old stuff because it wasn't fast enough to support the new stuff. So we ended up having to spend another $40,000 and get something approved right away that was coming from Canada. So we had to give the permission to the team to go ahead and purchase that, so we ended up over the $100,000.
Any questions or discussion on agenda item 10.1? Hearing none, do we have consent?
Yep.
We have consent on 10.1. Thank you. Move to item 11, City Manager verbal reports.
Hi, Mayor and Council. I just have a couple of things. One, I know that I had the opportunity to attend several meetings, most of them tourism-based last week, where the feedback that we got was of so much gratitude. And so just wanted to take a moment to, again, thank the team and make sure they understand how much this community, both residents and businesses, truly appreciate the work that they have done in response to the storm. Way more than I hear complaints do I hear the accolades and just how outstanding the team is. And so just really want to make sure it was very important to them that that message get delivered back to the team. So wanted to say that publicly here today and ask that you all continue to share the feedback of the gratitude that we get. And then the only other item that I have is, I know that we spoke about this several times in our one-on-one, but wanted to give an update at the dais that we did reach an agreement for the parking rules for the Harborview project. And so just wanted to briefly, it's what we had discussed in our one-on-ones, but the agreement that has now been signed does allow for the Harborview project to use those spots and to even sell them at market rate, so long as the following conditions have been met. One, it does designate our spots to be used by library staff when the library is open. It also allows for library patrons to be permitted for 4 hours of free parking with a validation, and we're working through them in terms of how that validation will be accommodated. And it also provides use for the city council of those spaces as well. So if after all of those things, there are spaces that are left over, they can sell those spaces at market rate. That's the gist of the agreement that we have reached, but I just wanted to make sure that was discussed publicly at the dais. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Just to add, I agree with everything the manager said. So just for a little bit of context, because I had the benefit of being here in the beginning when this was all done. So at the time when the development agreement was first negotiated, the prior city manager was very concerned about having adequate parking, especially for staff, which is understandable. At that point, remember, Coach and Park was not finished yet. It was early in construction. We also didn't know how this development was gonna go. There were too many unknowns, City Hall, et cetera. And so the direction that I got from the previous city manager was to say, make sure that whatever happens, we reserve parking for staff. So the original development agreement called for us to reserve 50 parking spaces for the city. Now that we're further along in the process, it became clear, I think, to the city manager's office, and even I would have to agree, that we probably don't need 50 spaces for ourselves. And once that became clear, of course, the development team would like to be able to utilize those spaces. Having them sit empty doesn't really benefit anyone. It doesn't help the development team be successful. It doesn't help us. And so now we've been able to identify that we don't actually need all 50 of those spaces. And so the manager felt comfortable that we were able to scale it down to a more manageable number so that we don't have spaces sitting vacant, and the development team is able to make use of those. So that's the purveyment of it, but that's also the background for how we got to that place.
That's everything I have, sir.
Is that your report, city attorney reports?
My report.
Case closed?
Case closed.
Okay, with that, new business, any new business, anything on the agenda? Councilmember Teixeira.
Just want to reiterate that in the next work session, I want to do an update on the opiate abatement task force with the gap analysis that was just published.
Okay. Anything else in the new business? Well, closing comments by Mayor. The only thing I have to share is we just attended a press conference this morning at Sand Pearl Resort in Clearwater Beach, where one of the principal owners and managing partner of Philadelphia Phillies, John Middleton, announced a $1 million matching donation to Amplify Hope. As I shared at the press conference, it was apparent Saturday when you were here for the FEMA 50% rule that although you can go out to Clearwater Beach today, and it looks much like it did before we had 2 hurricanes, amazing work our team has done, the business has done, the community has done, to get our beach back to looking pretty again and very presentable. There are still a lot of people who filled this room on Saturday who, they've cleaned out their homes, but now they're struggling with repairing their homes and trying to figure out if they have the financial resources to repair their homes and to meet the FEMA rules if they have to build up. So I talked with one woman who's in tears, she and her husband, about just not knowing what the future held for them. And many other folks out on the community, whether in the hospitality industry, and they're concerned about, whether tourism is going to fully come back, be able to support their families with their work and wages. So even though things are looking very nice, we've done a fantastic job of making the appearance of Clearwater Beach look very good. I just wanted everybody to know there's still a lot of hurt going on and a lot of need for relief here in Clearwater. And so that's why we welcome today the Phillies making this significant contribution, a matching donation of $1 million to Amplify Hope that will not just help Clearwater businesses, but Clearwater residents. They've expanded their footprint to cover residences. So you don't have to be a business owner to have a grant application accepted from them. And hopefully, Mr. Middleton's challenge to the entire community was for others to also donate to match his grant. So we hope that lots more will be donated, because there certainly is a lot of need, a lot of families who've been out on Clearwater Beach. Some of those families whose one-story dwellings were, all their contents were destroyed and have substantial damage. They've been out there for 50 or 60 years. They're elderly folks and families who are part of the important fabric and character of Clearwater Beach. So very important announcement today, and we want to thank him on behalf of his kind donation, and the Phillies on behalf of their continued 78-year relationship with the city and how much they've been part of our community for so many years. But I got a call to the community, to others out there who want to give. Amplify Hope is an organization which will make sure all the money donated will go directly to hurricane survivors. So with that, I will adjourn the November 18, 2024 work session of the Clearwater City Council.